Welcome back to another episode of System of Systems, the audio misinformation arm, the Safety Propaganda Counterintelligence Network. This is Adam. I'm here with a reoccurring guest host, Bradford Kessler.
Hello.
And we have a very special guest today. He's been called the most famous Nordic artist since Edvard Munch. And I'm a longtime fan of his work, and we're very honored to have him here. Bjarne Megaard, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Do you see me in the picture?
Yeah. You're right there. Yeah.
So it's okay? I don't need to change positions or anything?
You're perfect. We got you.
Okay, awesome.
So
how are you?
I feel great. I actually had a preposterously long sleep last night, which never happens to me. So I feel pretty fucking good.
Yeah.
What about you?
We just returned home from Bangkok.
How was Thailand?
Fantastic. I produced all my sculptures there, and we also made a movie, and we made the photo series that is like super pornographic. And I lost my show at Ramakan Crucible by showing him 2 photos.
Really?
Yeah, because now it's racist to say that you like to suck black cock.
Oh yeah, of course.
Like that's suppressive. So I'm doing this show in the private museum in New York now, where I'm showing my new movie, Barney Does, and I'm showing new sculptures and paintings. So
I'm excited to see it. You're coming to New York for that, right?
Yeah, sure. I'm staying from the 5th to the 7th.
All right, so we'll definitely come check out that show for sure.
Yeah, sure. Come to the opening.
How long did it take you to put together the photos, and did you incorporate like Thai prostitutes and such like that?
It was more, it was friends of us, but also escorts and prostitutes.
Excellent.
It's also connected. I mean, because my movie, Barney Does It All, it's mainly about me identifying as a whore since I was 15.
Yeah.
And then I went into art education for many years, and I studied at the postgraduate institutes in the Faurschou Gallery in Jan van Eyck. And then I just felt like at one point of education that I don't have it. I don't have the ambition to be an artist. So I'm born in Sydney. So I left for Sydney, and I just became a beach bum. And then like since I was like I've been like a drug addict for 35 years. So like I had quite a heavy habit. And then I started working as a hooker and an escort. And I was doing like the streets, but one of my friends got killed. Like he was half Australian, half Aboriginal. So I joined this agency called Alexander, which was like, the kind of main escort agency of Sydney. And, at that point, like now I'm like 56, like a worn out old faggot, but I was like reasonably handsome when I was younger.
Yeah.
But I wasn't steroids then. So I was kind of like the loser of the whole agency. Because I also had this kind of weird intellectual idea of that I was kind of like Paul America in My Hustler by Andy Warhol.
Yeah, for sure.
So I contemplated like that Paul America look where I had my hair sleeked back, jeans jacket without anything under, and also ultra tight jeans, which was like super unfashionable at the time.
Yeah.
Did you have cowboy boots?
Whenever I went to a bar and just have a beer, people were mainly asking, what's your price?
What steroids were you using?
I was using everything.
Yeah.
I was using, testo. I was also like using, when I lived in Berlin, I was, for instance, using Ganabol.
Oh, I'm not familiar with that one.
That is a horse testosterone that makes muscles for horses grow.
Oh, like trenbolone?
Yeah.
I've done Tren before. It's fucking nuts.
Yes.
I did it for a month and I looked like a fucking god.
I used to, when I lived in New York, I used to be on steroids for about 12 years.
Wow, that's longer than most like professional bodybuilders use them.
Listen, I was asked to become Mr. Miami.
So you were doing actual bodybuilding?
I was actually doing the real bodybuilding.
That's fucking
awesome. When I went to a club in New York, I took my shirt off. I had like 50 guys hanging after me. But my problem was always like, I was always so out of it. So, a lot of the times it didn't really work that well.
Right. You weren't saving any money, I take it.
Huh?
You weren't saving the money, I take it.
No, but in Sydney, like I started to think, okay, I'm the escort who makes no money here.
Yeah.
Then I realized that there's a huge client base at the agency who have no hookers. And that's the ones who wanted to do like scat, S&M, breath control, like for instance, having love affairs with the hookers. So I started to take them as clients. And suddenly, I was booming. And I became, known as Barney Does it all.
So there we go. There's the fucking name of the movie.
That's the name of the movie.
Oh man, that was a great fucking long-winded answer.
So that was, so the movie is kind of, about both this identification as a whore, working in period as a hooker escort, but also moving into the art world as a whore. Because I think that, the art world makes artists into whores. We're selling ourselves. We're putting us out there. We have to put on Instagram. We have to go to galleries. We have to meet collectors. And, I think that if an artist is honest, he will say that I hate collectors. Because what they do is that they buy radicality for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And, I have also very good collector friends. So it's a duality in it. But the movie also is about kind of me being in New York, but also my demise as a crystal meth addict, where in the end, I went bankrupt. I went from having a 2,000 square feet studio with 20 assistants to having nothing.
Yeah.
And I had to go back to Norway and stay at 3 square feet room at my mom. And I went into rehab. And I also was then involved here in Oslo in a kind of heavy criminal activities, which I actually preferred to, being an artist in New York.
Yeah. It felt less soul-sucking, you mean?
Yes, it actually felt more honest.
Yeah.
Something more raw.
Yeah. So that's what the movie is about. And then there is paintings, and there's my new sculptures that I produce in Thailand. And I made 5 sponsor deals with the biggest Botox and Restylane and anti-aging products in the world, in America. And I can send you photos later, but the sculptures have cups. So they will be filled with Botox, Restylane, the whole place where the sculptures are kind of like integrated with all these products of Botox, Restylane, needles and all of those things.
Genius.
And there's also a huge vitrine which shows, diaries, work stuff, and everything like that. And then there's the movie that they have built the cinema for.
Amazing. You know what
How
I
long is the
find?
movie?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Bradford.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to ask how long the movie is.
It's 25 minutes.
Cool.
Perfect. You know what I find amazing, Bjarne, is that fucking all the shit that you endured in the art world. And I used to see you around everywhere. You were really like a big deal. And you got fucked over, but your lust for working is like as profound and powerful as it seems to have ever been.
Yeah, but I mean, it's also now, because I came to Norway, and my career was basically over. But I had still some very loyal big time galleries like Row Patch
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And so I still was connected, but I was still doing drugs, and I just couldn't manage to stop.
Yeah.
It wasn't fun anymore. It was just that I couldn't get out of bed without it.
Yeah. Heroin was my thing, and it's been about 11 years since I used now. But by the end of what was it? It was basically 10 years of on and off opioid addiction. And
Yeah.
at the end of it, it was like I was in grad school, and I have no idea how I managed to get through it, but be sitting around waiting for my dealer and then get to class but there were so many times that I would just be like in class sick as a fucking dog.
Yes.
Having to like pretend that I felt okay, and I was done with it. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll still smoke weed now, and I'll still I use psychedelics occasionally.
Yeah.
And I have trouble sleeping, so I'll take an Ambien or whatever if I have to.
Yeah.
But I just like avoid any heavy stimulants, cocaine, crack.
Yeah,
and
me too.
heroin. Yeah.
I mean, me too, because but what I did that helped me become sober was that I went to ketamine therapy.
Oh wow. I've been hearing about this.
Because like my husband, he endured 6 years of my heavy drug abuse, and we started to look for, and it didn't work in the beginning, but suddenly I felt this feeling of how it felt to feel good. And it was so long time ago that I could remember that how it felt to feel actually comfortable in your own body, and not hating yourself and just wishing you were somebody else, and just feeling like everything you do is shit, and I made all these shit shows to pay my taxes or whatever, and somehow after a while that worked, and now I've been sober for quite a while, and but my career kind of took off again. I started to get a lot of offers from Asia, from Berlin, from New York, from Chicago. I did a lot of I also like to work with really young independent spaces with young people. And so I move in between like museums, small independent spaces, and more professional galleries.
Yeah. That's surprising. Well, maybe not that surprising, but Ramekin Crucible's cowardice, because I feel like they've kind of branded themselves as like a
He's a fucking
semi-edgy
cunt.
gallery. Yeah, he sounds like a cunt for sure.
You know, he canceled my show because I sent him 2 photos for my photo series in Bangkok where I'm sucking on a black cock.
And he said,
And
"What? You're objectifying black people."
A lot of
he
people are
meant-
pretend
he meant-
edgy too.
he meant that I was planting pornography on his WhatsApp to make something happen. I mean, he's so paranoid that,
Wow.
but it's also the problem of, you know, these New York hipsters, you know, and you know they think they're so cool, and everything has to be so cool, and for me, I could never identify with that because I was never cool. I never felt cool and I never did really cool things. And as a teenager, I was like, I was fat, I was nearsighted, and I had no friends. And the only thing that interested me was No Wave by Lydia Lunch and
Yeah.
DNA and Teenage Jesus and the Jerks.
Yeah.
I had
Mars.
and Mars, of
Mars
course.
is fucking amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, the fact that I got kicked out of the art world, basically out of all
Did you
publishing.
used to be an artist?
Yeah, I still make some work, but primarily a writer, you know, and I was like sort of just contributing essays and things like that to various magazines. And then I got publicly fired from this publication called The Quietist, where I had a regular column.
Yeah.
And they fired me because I defended a friend of mine who they disliked very much for whatever fucking reason. And they accused me of repressed Nazism. It's the most insane fucking email I've ever gotten in my life. But anyways, that sort of ricocheted. And then no one would work with me anymore.
Yeah.
And then but it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because then COVID fucking happened and it forced me to just build my own thing, which ended up working out.
But that's what happened when I did this show in Germany that was closed by the German state called Black Low.
Oh yeah, yeah, I remember hearing about this. The Germans are fucking nutbags.
That you know, once, I mean, I am not a Nazi and I'm not interested in them. And but you know, there, if you work with all these black metal bands,
yeah, of course.
I mean, they literally say black metal is for white people.
Right. Yeah, it's about like Viking glory and Europeanism and all,
and also like very much Nordic mythology and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, but I feel like if you work with art and you work with thematics that can be difficult, I think it's a different format to present it in an art context than if you do it like in a newspaper.
100%, yeah.
And but I mean, when my show was closed, it's the only show in post Europe that was closed by the German state. Not even Hitler actually closed the show. So I came to the opening.
That's a good accolade.
And then at the opening, there were like 60 policemen, and all my artworks were covered with, you know, Achtung, Warnung, you know. So you know, and so once you get that stamp on you that you're a neo-Nazi, I mean, I also did a show in Madrid where I used pages from Norwegian neo-Nazi magazine. I painted over them, and I was in the selection for Documenta with Ukve Investor. And when they saw that, they canceled my Documenta participation immediately.
Yeah.
So you know, it's a theme that is almost impossible to have any discourse about.
I made a narrative film like 2015. It was a short porno I made for the New York Porn Film Festival. And I depicted, this is a fictional world I depicted. It's not even autobiographical. It's a narrative story. And the character in it, who's a serial killer, has a weapon with the swastika on it. And like that, people didn't even, people that didn't even see it, those are the ones that like really like came at me hard. But like I lost a museum show. It definitely like things snowballed, and like there was a dead era from that. And like I realized like all these people, it's like you're saying, all these people in the New York art world that pretend to be edgy, it's all a facade. Those were the ones that really like when they talked to me about it, I could hear in their voices like they really like were bothered by the imagery, the content. They're actually like extremely
but it just happened now again with, you know, Zach, who does edition in Melbourne.
Yeah.
He had a show at Jenny's, and he's Jewish, and he made a painting of, collectors as Nazis. And Jenny took and, censored it and refused him to show it. So he covered it with plastic and wrote "censored by Jenny's."
Whoa!
And
that is nuts.
That's supposed to be like the cutting edge stage.
Yeah, she represents Matthew. She represents Zach. Oh my God, that is bad. People are fucking frauds. I swear to God, it drives me insane. Unless you make something with like, if you don't make your art with like an explicitly condemning tone in the fucking content, which erases anything that could possibly be interesting about it, because it's in the engagement with the audience in this way that gives something its power. The what if factor is what art is. It's the ponderousness. And they want you to erase that just so they can present it in a way that'll offend the least amount of fucking people. It's pretty fucking grotesque.
Yes. And now I also think what is dangerous now is that we are now suddenly not allowed to have a fantasy life anymore. And I think that for me, if you, for instance, have rape fantasies, it's, it doesn't mean that the day after you want to walk down the street and a wacko knocks you down and rape you. It's just two different things. But I think if we are not allowing ourselves to have a fantasy life that is free, I mean, what in the end do we have?
Yeah, they refuse to factor in the concept of catharsis, that we need a society, a place to like just let it all go, let all the dark shit go. Fucking we're crystals.
It's made us all liars too, hasn't it? Because at least every man has hated someone and fantasized about what it would be like to kill that person.
Yes.
And if you haven't, you're a liar. So it's like it's actively turning, it's actively making us all into fucking liars against our own will.
When I did the Venice Biennial in 2011, I collaborated with Leo Bersani, who is a cultural theorist who wrote this essay that is kind of famous called "The Rectum is a Grave." And he also published a book where he was saying that, we are all serial killers. It's just, it's all just accidental who actually becomes this is not something, there is not some specific personality who is a serial killer, but there are many factors who does it. And I think that, if we are not willing to at least discuss these things and talk about them, we are slowly going into, a place where we have an intellectual discourse on the level of a 5-year-old.
Yeah, it's made everybody very stupid for sure.
Bjarne, do you think this is like sort of a poisonous issue with just specifically the art world? Because think about like the film world, how many directors specifically make slasher films, you know, over and over, how many novelists are able to.
No, fiction's pretty fucking bad right now. I mean, I can't get shit published unless it's like the fucking I mean, even with the most underground publishing houses, I get fucking a bajillion questions from my publishers and editors about every single sentence.
It might be because you're in bed with the art world.
Yeah.
It might be because you're on the podcast with me and Bjarne. Like, you know, they assume everything you're making is autobiographical. Whereas like John Carpenter, all these directors made like killer films for decades, you know, like nobody judged them for it.
No.
You know.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. Think about like Jonathan Glazer, for instance, just made The Zone of Interest. And he is getting a little heat for the fact that he's showing Nazism at its most like root ideological form in a very formal way. It is, you know, he honestly is like in a lot of ways asking us to take the position of someone ideologically brainwashed or consider what that must be like. And there were certainly like whispers of like, this is inappropriate, blah, 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 blah. But ultimately, it's like the film is a way where you can like, it just forces enough people to really think about it. Whereas like other more neutral art forms, like visual art is very opaque and oblique and personal. So it's like that amount of discussion never kind of happens around the work. It's like the dealers, the curators, they decide what everyone else thinks. It's a much more like top-down system.
But it also is now, you know, it's almost like the curators are creating the art. And I also talk a lot about that in my film. Like, for instance, like, you know, the bitterness of, you know, failed artists who becomes curators and gallerists and actually hate art and hate artists.
You
know?
I think so.
Fact.
Yeah, it's interesting what you said before. It's interesting what you said before too. There's this about we're all serial killers. Fred Boding wrote this essay about Peter Curtin, and he makes the argument at the end that like if Peter Curtin had gotten into experimental writing or something like that, then maybe he could have like decompressed his sadism into a positive channel. But God, I have so many questions I want to ask you, but I wanted to turn real quick to this thing right here.
The
new issue.
The Japanese nightmare.
So for the audience, there's a new issue of Richardson Magazine, Andrew Richardson's pornographic art magazine that is for sure one of the best still existent magazines. And Rae Lil Black, a porn star that I'm sure many people are familiar with, is on the cover, photographed beautifully by David Sims, and interviewed by none other than Bjarne here. So how was that entire experience? It sounds like the interview got rather hostile.
Well, to try to get an interview with Rae Lil Black is almost impossible. I knew Andrew's a very good friend of mine. I love Andrew. I love Richardson. I love how he talks about sex. I love that no matter what he do, you know, he has always respect for people. He treats people, he's into all this kind of weird stuff, but at the same time, he's a real good person. And he was, you know, even at my lowest in New York, he was always cool to me. So he phoned me and asked, you want to interview Rae Lil Black for Richardson? And I was like, Rae Lil Black, who? Because I'm gay and I don't watch straight porn. And I don't even watch porn because I'm married to a husband who is, you know, amazing. So yeah, I said, yeah, check her out. And I checked her out, and I saw her YouTube videos, and then we decided to do an interview, and I did, some research, and I found it kind of amazing that a porn star is making like 10,000 food blogs, and go to 500 billion food conferences, and eats all the time and never seem to gain a pound.
Yeah,
And and so and then I watched some of her porn, and like I also saw her first, the one that went virtual for the first time. And and my question was a lot, and that was in the interview, because the interview was heavily edited, because half of the questions she didn't want the interview in the magazine.
interesting.
But Andrew insisted on it. But a lot of it was because I think that a lot of her appeal is that in her film she looks like she's 12.
Yeah, she gets fucking mad when you ask that question. She
It
goes,
went,
that question is very disgusting, and I wish you didn't ask it.
she was so upset.
Yeah,
But I mean, come on. It's true.
yeah. I mean, she does look
Well,
very young. She's got huge, huge tits, but her face looks very sort of. It's that sort of Japanese cutesy kind of
yes,
thing.
yes. So we tried to me and Andrew tried to coordinate a Zoom conversation with her about 35 times, and that was impossible because she's always at a food conference. And I thought, like, aren't you doing porn? Like, what, what is this? I mean, either she's in Brazil eating a fucking sausage, or she's in like Japan eating sushi, or she makes, a video where she eats a tarantula. And and then I felt like, I also asked people a little about her. I realized that she was really big as a porn star.
Yeah,
That
she's like
that
top
she,
20 on Pornhub.
that she's really like somebody who straight guys really get turned on by.
Yeah, yeah,
So that was interesting for me to dwell into that. And I saw her YouTube channel, which I think is really boring, but there's also always is endless porn blogs. But then she suddenly published this YouTube video where she has a meltdown, where she's like, she's basically, falling apart in front of the camera, crying how lonely she is. She hasn't had a boyfriend for 6 years.
yeah.
So hard to, after her surgery, people said she was uglier than she was before. And but what she did with this YouTube video was that she put music to it, and she translated it into 3 languages.
So
And
it's
I thought it was
attention getting.
And I thought it was a little bit like, you want to make this authentic kind of social meltdown while you translate it into 3 languages. And she got very insulted by that.
Yeah,
And then I also, like while I was doing kind of Rae Lil Black art. And we sent her photos, and she hated it.
yeah. They're in the magazine.
Yeah.
They're fantastic.
Yeah, she thought I also painted a painting of, because she's really obsessed with Norwegian black metal.
Yeah, I see her wearing like the Mayhem and
Yeah,
Dark
but
Dark t-shirts.
she also went to Bergen to walk the same street as Bursum, you
Yeah.
know? And so she's really, and I thought that was kind of interesting for a young Japanese girl who does porn to, you know, have that interest, because I was also so connected to the black metal scene in my own work. So you know, I thought that was interesting, but I think that I don't think she likes sex.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you mentioned that, right? So she's this is a full disclosure. She's the only girl I've ever subscribed to on OnlyFans. And I disconnected because I didn't want, she's gonna find out now. I didn't want my wife to find out. So I disconnected, but I was watching her content, and she did this one video where she had like a wedding ceremony, but she was like marrying herself in this like symbolic gesture of like, I'm okay being alone. And it was like very obviously a mentally ill fucking thing. And it just, you know, I think a lot of these girls, because 18-year-old girls are kind of dumb, right?
Yeah.
So they make this decision thinking, oh, it'll be fine. I'm into sex. But there's this show, the Nelk Boys. Typically, they just interview fighters. These guys are awful, but they interview UFC fighters. I'm a UFC fan, so their videos come up. One of the smeegy little hosts does this sideshow where he just interviews porn stars. And the show is always set up to sort of frame the girl as self-aware, intelligent, knows what she's doing, and yet they always kind of end up revealing themselves as very dumb and like totally fucking damaged by with rare exceptions, you know, of course, but like in general, the show just kind of reinforces a negative stereotype of these girls.
Yes.
And you know, because you're men and women alike, but women especially, their brain and mind changes so much from 18 to 24. You have to wonder, like, if Rae Lil Black just feels a lot of shame about everything.
But I mean, from Andrew, I heard that she started porn because she had a lot of debt.
Mm.
And she's also very well educated. So she's not dumb.
Mm.
She's in it for the money.
Yeah.
But if you're really in it for the money, porn isn't the place because it doesn't pay that well.
No, it's only like 1%.
You know, like when I used to live in New York, I had porn stars as boyfriends, and you know, they got two. You know, they were like at Falcon with the old calendars and everything, and they got paid $2,000 a movie, so they had to escort. You know. So the films are basically not porn films, but more, you know, advertisements as them as escorts.
Right.
So you know, and you know, so you know, I think that, you know, she's interesting because she's so cold.
Yeah.
You know, that there's a complete lack of any emotional engagement in what she does.
That's fascinating.
You know, and it's like texting with her is like texting with a robot. You know?
Yeah.
And so you know, the interview you know, it became what it became, and I kind of thought it was funny that she hated me so much. You know?
No, it works for the interview. It's absolutely amazing. Like, because you're kind of reading through it, and her answers are kind of whatever, but then she gets pissed, and it becomes this like great piece of reading. You know, like kind of. It just makes the thing sing so much better. She's really. Yeah, I'll bring this magazine over to your house, Bradford. You gotta fucking read this shit. But yeah, it was very. I mean, Japan does have a pretty good black metal bands, but you know, like.
But you know that she still lives with her parents, who doesn't know what she does.
Whoa!
Wow!
You know, you know, we had one conversation where, you know, she lives in Tokyo with her mom. So while she's doing, you know, Asakira, Pornhub, live Instagram, her mom is next door cooking noodles. And
Yeah.
she's also like, you know, she's also was, I was asking questions about, you know, for instance, how your family feel about you doing porn. And then she said she got blackmailed. And she was very insulted. I asked this, and how could I ask her this? Because I was putting her family in danger. And then, you know, I went on YouTube the other day, and there's 5 YouTube videos of her family walking in the parks in Japan. So you know, she just, you know, in the end, I don't know what to think of that girl. What do you think of the photos?
The photos by David,
Yeah.
I think they're amazing because they kind of my wife Michelle was even looking at the magazine, and she even admitted she's much more beautiful than most porno girls are. And I think
Yeah.
that's true. Like, she has sort of a natural, exquisite beauty.
Yes.
And David kind of frames that, even though the photos are hypersexualized, you know, and she looks a bit more natural than usual. Porn girls have like dolled up fucking faces, like,
Yes.
you know, she has this sort of mystery that but
She
like
she also have
deconstruct. Yeah,
she also have a very like kind of low key down style.
yeah, yeah, you know,
So,
it
you
seems
know,
a
like
little less
she will
self-conscious.
she will dress like in a black dress or like a hoodie, you know, and be. I mean, she doesn't. I mean, she's not Ginger Lynn, to put it like that,
Right, right,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah. um
So
but yeah, I thought the interview was great, and just, you know, an amazing collaboration all around. um you know, I was also curious, that installation you did, I forget what year it was, but the one when you gave away like your whole wardrobe,
yeah,
was that I tried to get into that, but it was like, it was fucking packed. Like, everyone showed up to that one.
yeah.
Uh did you, when you ended up going to rehab, end up regretting giving away all your clothes?
No,
No.
I didn't
Hey, I
regret.
have a couple things from
I,
that if you
I was just happy to get rid of it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and I also just there is, I also once I did a museum show in Oslo where I gave away my whole storage of art for free.
Wow. I wish I was at that
So
show.
and you know, so people, but what was funny was I put it all the artworks in the courtyard of the museum, and I was thinking, like, you know, this is gonna, like, you know, slowly disappear to the autumn poetically. People take a piece at a time. And what happened was 7 o'clock in the morning, people came with, like, you know, cranes and, trucks, and stood in line. So after 10 minutes, the whole courtyard was, you know, empty.
That's
But
fucking
but
cool.
I like the aspect that some art can be for free.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
imagine
yeah,
it's sort of like a
you
spiritual
give it
reset too.
away, you know?
Yeah.
But also, I also think that show at Red Bull, it was also kind of, you know, I was, I was at my lowest point in a way. I mean, I was bankrupt. I was, you know, completely addicted to meth. And I was, you know, I had to just get out.
Yeah.
And I just thought, you know, I'm not going to move to Norway with 10,000, you know, Yamamoto
Armies.
clothes or whatever. So
Yeah.
this just gets rid of the fucking thing.
Kind of like a spiritual reset in a lot of ways, I'm sure.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Hey
Uh,
Bjarne, I have like this plushie doll. I wish I would have got it out. I have this plushie doll with the holes in it,
Yes,
and then
that's from
I
a
have
show that's from a show I did with Babak Radboy. You know, he the one that he
oh
works
yeah,
with Telfar.
Yeah.
And we did a
If you're
whole museum show in Austria where we made those dolls, and we made those tracksuits with holes in them. I don't know if you ever saw them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They were like, that's when I worked with fashion, and
Yeah, so I have this it's like a paper mache voodoo doll. This guy with a little dick and white hair.
yes,
Somebody from Red Bull gave it to me, and
yeah.
it's fucking falling apart, but I still have it. It might last like 6 more months.
Yeah.
Do you still keep up with fashion, and do you what do you think about where the industry has gone since that whole period?
I have, next year I'm doing my biggest fashion collaboration ever, but I'm not allowed to say who it is.
Oof, momentum built.
Momentum built. But fall 24 is launching in Asia, America, Europe, with a very big label. And I also work with a Norwegian label now. I work with producing my own perfume. I also work with an underground label that's my favorite, called Wendy and Jim in Austria.
I'll check that out.
So I'm definitely interested in fashion.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in, the whole, the idea of creating a narrative about yourself. And so I still have contact and do, but next year will be a lot of fashion. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, you know what I like about the fashion industry is when it does do gestures to sort of politically when it does gesture towards politically correct thinking, as it was sort of forced to do from like 2017 to 2020. We all know fashion is like, it's commerce, like, and it's like unadulterated form, so you can sort of like discard all the ideological commandeering of it and just enjoy the pure fantasy space. It's sort of like the last creative industry that's almost like still allows you to engage in unadulterated apolitical fantasy.
Yes,
yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
I mean, thank you. I feel that, the people I work with in the fashion industry is, way more open than people in the art world.
Yeah.
And like, I was also like, when I made my first collection with Babak, I also did a collection with a German fashion label, Bless.
I know that one.
And the first client was Rihanna.
Nice.
And the second client was Kim Kardashian.
That's number 1 and 2.
So when Rihanna was 30 years old, she wore my I Hate Rihanna t-shirt on Instagram.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah, actually, Bradford, remember you and I were talking about starting a fashion label for bodybuilders because none of the clothes fit me right because I'm too fucking wide.
Yeah, we kind of let that go. We gotta come back to that.
We gotta get back on that. And for bodybuilding women too, they have nothing to wear.
Yeah.
Spandex all day.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get to this. Let's get to your most recent discord in life, which was your so your former backers.
Yes.
Steinley and Svein Roar Grande, something like that.
Yes.
They fucked you over for a lot of money, correct?
300 million kroner.
Jesus. So how did that all play out? They basically took advantage of you when you were strung out, is the story that I heard.
The thing was that while I was on Met, I signed a lot of contracts. And in the end, I signed away my signature, and I signed away also the rights for my sculptures and graphics. So they have been producing works. And at one point in Norway, I had 50 shows at the same time in different frame shops and shitty galleries all over Norway.
Oh my God.
And, I tried, like, since I signed these contracts, and I was also then not sober. I couldn't really know how to stop them before I met my new lawyer, who also is kind of a part of my new management, because now I'm so paranoid doing something, so I don't do anything. I don't sign a paper without 10 lawyers reading it first.
Yeah. I mean, you're a
But
big artist.
But the whole case was so much in the media here, and I was portrayed as, the #1 drug-wrecked whore of Scandinavian art. It was just like, I mean, what they were writing was just, but that was our only chance to, start the court case. And while we were finding it out, we found out that my management in New York had been scamming me for 10 years.
I believe it.
And so for instance, when we were asking for account transfers from my company, my management have erased all accounts for the last 12 years.
Fuck that.
But what they have also done is they have imported all this art without, and they have said to the authorities, it belongs to me. But I have never, they gave me money so I could have my studio, and they got art back. But they told authorities that, this all belongs to Bjarne. So we don't need to pay any taxes or anything. But, I had no clue. So what is happening now is that they are facing up to 5 years in jail.
Yeah, and honestly, the articles that I read, they sound guilty as fuck. Like their quotes are like, "Oh, we wish this was handled in private," but they're not like denying a single fucking thing. So yeah, it looks pretty bad for them. And let's face it, fucking financial backers are not exactly the public's preferred human beings. We know that these types are kind of, I mean, Bradford, you've had fucking issues.
My problem was that as an artist, I was always, almost willing to do anything to get my artwork done.
Yeah.
And I also I come from I'm from a working class background. So for me, I always had to fund my own things. I lived from my art since I was 20.
Yep.
But I never had rich parents or anything. So, I was, always depending on, trying to get my works done. And that cost money. And I'm not saying, I was a drug addict a long time before I met them. I had lived in Berlin, and I had overdosed 20 times, and I lived in Brussels, and I lived in Barcelona, and I lived in Sydney, and I lived in Paris, and I lived in Antwerp, and God knows where. But, I had 5 lawyers working on it, and they said they never seen anything similar. Because there is, in all those years, in every correspondence, there is never a question about how am I? How are you doing? you know, we had meetings where I'm so drugged out that I can basically not sit on a chair.
Yes.
So, you know, they and so you know, they completely fucked up my market in Norway. And then everybody said that, you know, Bjarne is over, you know, he's finished. And I had a lot of taxes to pay, and the newspapers were following me everywhere. So I did, you know, a graphic show, an edition show of sculptures. And everybody says, like, well, you know, Bjarne, you know, you're not going to get your taxes paid because nobody's going to buy anything. But I sold 130 sculptures in 8 hours,
Fuck
and
yeah.
I sold for $1.2 million.
Fuck yes. Congratulations.
But what happened was, first I had to pay production and then taxes. So from those 12 million kroner, me and my husband were left with 68,000 kroner together.
But the taxes are covered, right?
So I got my taxes paid.
Got the man off your back.
But then, you know, I started getting, you know, serious offers for shows from people, and now I have shows, you know, I have shows in Mexico and Asia, US, Europe, England, and you know, I live together with my husband in a very nice flat here in Oslo. I have a studio that's just 2 minutes away. So every night we walk, because I paint at night, and we paint, and he stays in my studio, and I'm inspired. And this, the show in New York and the show I did in Oslo, is the first two shows I did sober in 35 years.
That's a huge milestone.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
And you know, I never felt that I was always wondering, could I be creative without drugs?
Yeah.
But I just now I feel like I am like overflowing with ideas.
Yeah, probably more creative.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean,
But also weird thing is that I feel much more crazy now than when I was on drugs.
well, you know what it is? It's like actually Nick Cave of the birthday party, etc. He does this fan page. People write him letters and he answers them. And someone asked him about, they're strung out on heroin, and they asked him about getting help, blah blah blah, and he goes, he's like, he's like, the floodgates of the world are entirely open now. I notice the rustle of the leaves. I notice the crispness of the air, the stench.
Yes.
Everything starts to come alive. I mean, I have this same question. I was like, so sort of in my head about this concept of like junkies and artists, but I didn't get fucking anything done when I was strung out. And now I've written, I mean, my first book that I published was about this question, about like creative instinct and addiction. I think for all the people that died, all the artists that died before they got clean, we don't even really know what their best stuff was, you know?
Yes.
That's one of the tragedies of it, because they were diluted.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder, the one exception to that, I wonder, Bjarne, maybe I would like to ask you about this, is because I didn't know until today that you had some experience with psychedelics, some DMT, and you made a VR piece inspired.
I made a virtual reality. I actually made one of the most expensive virtual reality pieces made.
Mm.
And it was inspired by a DMT trip. And for me, psychedelics is not the same as cocaine.
Definitely not.
Right.
You know, and for me, I mean, I like now I prefer just no drugs. I
Yeah.
like to have a glass of champagne with my boyfriend or my husband. And but I did through ketamine treatment and acid, mushrooms, MDMA, but I did it, under very controlled and with people who were professionals. I didn't do MDA and I went out partying for 12 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And
And
so I definitely think that the psychedelics definitely helped me feel like I didn't need to hate myself all the time.
can you talk a little bit about like what you experienced in the DMT trip? Like, I know you have a lot of animal imagery in a lot of your work, and I didn't
Yeah.
think about until today of that kind of maybe coming from a psychedelic place. I hate to use the word shamanistic, but like, this other area, like spirit animals,
Yeah.
or what your connection to these animals, or
Well,
where
well,
does that come
well.
from?
I think that for me, animals always have been spiritual beings
Yeah.
that I felt spiritually connected to. So during my trips, I did see uh, a lot of animals, but weirdly, my acid trips were very sexual. I had like this crazy acid trips, like I suddenly was on the 1970s sex scene. I was at Plato's retreat.
The one I've had sex on acid before too. It's like the one psychedelic for some reason you can still like get it up and do your thing.
Yeah. But I also had like, like deeper things, like, this near death experiences. And there was something that happened during one session that, a sentence came to me, and it was that death is not spectacular. And somehow
Mm.
those things started to mean a lot for me, you know? And so like I I I'm very pro psychedelics. And my reality piece was about the DMT trip. And I think that, and I do think that these things can release things in you, release trauma. But most of all, I think that for a lot of people who have been drug addicts for, I mean, as long as I was been, you don't know anymore what it means to feel anything pleasurable anymore,
Yes.
or anything, ecstatic, or,
Yes.
beautiful, or anything. And these things can help you. And that, I mean, I don't think personally, without, for instance, going to ketamine treatment, I don't think I would manage to stay sober.
Do you still go?
No, I don't go now.
Yeah.
I've been shocked by this new phenomenon of the ketamine treatment, because like my experience with ketamine back in my raver days was always the most horrific, nightmarish.
I hate
Have you ever had a
them.
K-hole, like a proper K-hole?
Yeah.
Go
I
into like
think
a
it's- I think of all the drugs I took, I thought ketamine was the worst.
Yeah, it's scary.
yeah,
I
it's
mean, it's
fucking
just
weird.
the worst. I don't understand how people want to go out party on ketamine, because it's fucking
Yeah.
awful.
Yeah.
Certainly not a social drug.
I mean,
It's
that
like,
time we did it at 15 Orient was the worst K-hole I've ever had in my entire life. And I remember all of a sudden looking around the room and I could see all my friends' faces, but I couldn't attach words or language to any of you, so you all just looked like
Yeah.
demonic little bobbleheads fucking laughing at me. And and I totally lost speech. And I was just like, whoops. And the it's so dose specific. You go from like, whoa, this is fun. It's like a fun house to
like,
oh shit, I
in a
just dropped
pit,
into fucking hell.
like a haunted house mirror funky room. Yeah, I know. I've had that too, where I thought, where like the air gets sucked out of the room. I thought everyone was a ghost.
Yes.
Couldn't move my body. Like a
Yes.
lot of people experience something similar to alien abduction on it. You know, it's
Yes.
like you enter that hypnagogic state. That's not.
But I mean, if you take it as treatment, you know, they inject you, and you know you have headphones, and you are in it for an hour.
Probably a microdose that they're
controlled, peaceful,
yes,
safe.
Yes, and then
that.
you have like you know you have professional therapy also before and after.
Yes. You know, I actually, the first time I ever took ecstasy, I don't know if I ever told you this, Bradford, but I almost drowned. This is a nutty story. So I was 17 years old and I bought my first 2 pills from the guy that used to sell me weed. He was a student. I grew up on Cape Cod, Massachusetts. So summers were idyllic, beautiful, and serene. And I was with this girl that I liked, that I was friends with, and we were at this pond, big pond. It's called a snake pond. There's no snakes, it's just the name. Anyways, we take the drugs. Hour goes by. I'm like drenched in sweat. I'm like, let's go for a swim. So we went out to the water. We're both deliriously high, and we start like backstroking and swimming. Next thing I know, I've swam out like a good mile, and I'm in the dead fucking center of the pond, high as a kite. And dude, I was like an elite athlete. You know, I was a wrestler and track star, so I could swim.
Yeah.
My entire body goes dead. I have no more muscular movement left. The girl, I already see her down the horizon by the time I'm noticing. She's bobbling under. And then I'm bobbling under. I feel myself start to take in water. I'm fucking terrified. And thank God there was this guy out on a goddamn boat just fishing. He saved both of our lives. But it was a nutty first experience. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, that's not good.
No.
It does give you confidence.
Yes.
It's kind of a sports enhancing drug in that way. It gives you kind of like.
When I lived in Brussels, I used to get ecstasy from Hell's Angels in Amsterdam.
Very cool.
And you know, that was amazing. That was the best ecstasy I ever had.
Yeah, it's proper pills.
Yeah.
When MDMA is good, there's nothing like it. It's an unbelievable drug.
Yeah. You can't really find those in New York anymore, at least when I was.
But I haven't been to New York. I mean, are people still doing, you know, a lot of Adderall there?
I think some people are. I never cared for it much, but I know some people, they had a shortage or something last I heard. But one thing I will say about the scene in New York that's changed, at least since I started getting some success or whatever, is that it's much less about like all night raving, fucking drugging your face off than it is like more small gatherings where people have a drink and talk and stuff. It's kind of like calmed down and feels more, I don't know. Would you agree with me here, Bradford?
Not, I don't know, because I'm old now, so I'm like out of the.
That's true.
I'm out of touch. But now when I came here, I came from Beijing like a raver, and I was like looking for ecstasy, looking for these parties. It was only like Spectrum, the gay club, like underground secret club, but there were no like big raves. But I think that's happening now. There's like proper venues, but I'm just trying to go do it. Like I'm trying to be in bed.
Yeah, I don't go to that shit anymore.
So I think there's kind of a Berlin warehouse rave thing going on. I mean, there were some, but now it's like every weekend there's like multiple things happening. I'm just out of like if you're
Last
young.
time I was like into that kind of stuff. Did you ever go to Output, Bjorn, when it was in Williamsburg?
I can't remember.
It wasn't there for very long, but it was a big multi-level club, and they hosted a lot of different shows. I saw Richie Houghton there, and sometimes they even did like noise shows. I saw Merzbow there once, which was like the loudest fucking thing I've ever heard in my entire life. But since that closed, I don't. I like dancing, you know. I'm a pretty good dancer, but I just can't. I feel disgusting, like out at raves, staying up all night now.
Yes, I mean, for me, you know, I'm much more interested in, you know, going to Asia. I want to go to Kathmandu to make a movie. I mean, we go to Bangkok. You know, I love Bangkok because you can have all that, you know, that whole the sexual scene of it,
Yeah.
but you can also have the cultural scene of it, and you can have, you know, the people are unbelievably friendly and beautiful.
Yeah. How long have you been going to Bangkok?
I've been going back and forth quite a lot,
Did you?
and we're planning to move there. I want to move to Asia.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Did you ever hang out with Sleazy or Peter Christopherson from Coil while you were there? Were they still around?
I think they're dead.
They're dead now, but I was wondering because Sleazy died like
No,
4 years ago.
no, it's Sleazy. No, that's before I went to Bangkok.
Yeah, yeah. All right. One thing I also wanted to talk to you about is your love of Elizabeth Wurtzel.
Yes.
Because actually, when I was at NYU, one of my professors, who's now he's about to publish a book that I'm working on. David Samuels is his name. He's like a creative nonfiction writer, but he was good friends with Lizzie, and I was his favorite student. So he like took me out to dinner with Elizabeth. This is in like 2011, and I was a huge David Foster Wallace fan. So embarrassingly, all the questions I had for her were about dating DFW. But then I read Prozac Nation, and I thought it was like an absolutely amazing book. And she was such a cool, eccentric woman. She kind of had like a similar disposition as Camille Paglia, as like
Yes.
very clever, like fire starter. But
Yeah.
when did you first read Prozac Nation? And
I started reading it. I started reading, you know, I was actually the first person in Norway put on Prozac.
interesting. Another milestone.
Another milestone. So I read Prozac. I read Prozac Nation quite when it came out. And it made an everlasting impression on me. But also her other book about her cocaine addiction, I thought also was amazing.
Yeah, she's so good at like making like blurring reality into fiction, you know? Like ostensibly she's writing from experience, but it always you're reading it and it kind of feels like it takes place in a fictive space or something.
Yes, I also think that she, you know, my shrink in Norway actually knew her, and I always think that she also writes very intelligently.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, that she has a high intellect, and that she kind of understood. And I mean, her whole story about depression, addiction, all these things, I think she also managed to connect it to a bigger discourse that was a little bit more intellectual than just, you know, druggy memories. And I actually did a show in Paris dedicated to Elizabeth Wurtzel, which was of portraits of her.
Yeah. Yeah, I looked at the photos for that. They were at the images on the
I think it's
Throwback
called
website.
the book she wrote is called More, now, more now
Which is an
addiction.
amazing title for cocaine, by the way. More Now Again, a memoir of addiction.
Yes,
More Now.
yes, that was my favorite.
Yeah, I mean that's such a perfect title for a cocaine book. More Now, like that's all the fucking drug ever makes you think.
Yeah.
What it feels like.
Yeah, more
Yeah.
please.
That's all.
And then you know, do you know Kat Marnell?
Oh yeah. I used to when I was like an intern at Vice is when she was doing her amazing fucking column for them, amphetamine logic. I remember her coming
I
into the
love that
office.
column.
Oh, that column was phenomenal. I haven't kept up with her since, but
amazing.
yeah.
You know, I thought maybe How to Murder Your Life was not as great as the column, but you know, but my problem is that you know a lot of these people they end up in 12-step programs, and I think that 12-step programs is the absolute. There's nothing I hate more than 12-step groups.
Interesting.
I went to them for 20 years, and it's just bullshit.
Yeah.
You know?
My uncle has been in for a long time and he's so culty about it. And then he falls off the wagon like all the fucking time.
Yeah, and you should read. You should go online and read something called the Orange Papers. That is actually a guy who is investigating everything wrong with AA and NA. I think it's called Orange Papers or something. But you know, for instance, you know how many sponsors in AA are, you know, having sexual relationships with younger members of the groups.
Oh, I guarantee that happens like all the fucking time.
But there's also this crazy aspect. You're supposed to go to a group, and you're gonna go meet a sponsor that you maybe met 2 times in your life, and tell them everything about your life, and give them all your power, and it's completely insane. And
what
then
Scientology does.
And this message that you know you should give, you know, you should just realize you can't manage your own life. What is this a message to give to people? You know, that your life is unmanageable and the only thing you can do is sit in a group and listen to people that the only reason they're there is because they love to hear their own voice all the time.
Yeah.
Because at most other places nobody bothers to listen to them because they're so fucking boring.
Bjarne, fucking, I accidentally went to the wrong time for a NA group once, and it was the all women group. And I walked in, I'm like, oh, sorry, I must have got the time wrong. And they're like, it's okay, you're here, welcome. And
Yeah.
I had to listen to the most fucking narcissistic goddamn drivel of my fucking life for like
Yes.
2 hours. Like,
Yeah.
imagine how bad AA meetings are and NA meetings are, and then it's just all women gassing each other up. It was fucking nightmarish.
But you know what the worst meetings are Crystal Meth Anonymous.
I didn't even know about that one.
Because in New York, that's basically just like, you know, when they don't bother going on Grindr, they go to Crystal Meth Anonymous. You know?
Yeah.
So and they all talk about being without drugs, and they're all on steroids, and they're all on oxycodone and antidepressants, but not on crystal meth.
Congratulations.
You know, and
Yeah.
so you know, I went to those meetings, and I just like I really I didn't make any friends. Nobody liked me. I couldn't get a sponsor. And in the end, I just thought that, you know, I also think it's totally insane how every treatment center for addiction is a 12-step program.
In some form or another.
Yes.
Yeah, it's true. There's really kind of zero alternatives towards it. Like I have a counselor, you know, that I talk to every week, and I like him a lot. He's easygoing, but
Yeah.
he's still always like, have you gone to any 12-step meetings lately? Like they just it's been so inculcated as the only method. Like if someone was like destroying their entire family's life and whatever, AA helped them stop drinking, then okay, I'm gonna let you off. Yeah, I'm not gonna judge you, but it was never for me. It was never for me. Yeah,
Never for me either.
yeah,
And that's why, because I also think that you come to a point where your addiction is so heavy that it just isn't enough sitting in a group saying that, saying the serenity prayer, and we all have each other. That's why I believe so much in the psychedelics and the psychedelic experience and treatments, because it actually is also um, uh, a bodily experience. It's a physical experience that you actually
Beautiful.
feel that life can be something else than the hell of addiction you are in.
yeah. And another thing that worked for me, even though like steroids are still drugs, but they're not psychoactive, you know.
No.
But like bodybuilding and physical activity, or like training for fighting, playing sports, anything that like takes you out of your own fucking head, locked into your narcissism, I think is beneficial to people struggling with addiction. Like I've known people that like just started training for boxing and got off drugs, shit like that, you know.
Definitely. I mean, personally, I have no problems with people doing steroids,
Yeah.
because I also think that, like when I did all this research for my show in New York about Botox and Restylane and all these things, I started talking to a female researcher who, she also says that these things is about creating your own narrative about your body,
Yes.
and which I think is also liberating,
Yes.
and can be liberating in relationship to this very destructive way of using drugs.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always funny to me when people who are, you know, totally used to being around people smoking heroin and crack in the art world or whatever, right? Will be shocked when they find out that I'm on testosterone or Deca or whatever.
Yes.
It's like, so it's okay to use drugs to like annihilate yourself, but it's not okay to use drugs to strengthen yourself. Like, what the fuck?
Those are banned substances.
Yeah. God, what was something else I wanted to bring up?
I have a question.
Yeah, go.
Well, Bjarne, I have this this book from Vienna.
Yes.
Hubert Klocker gave to me when I was there in the Samalon Friedrichshafen show. So I was just curious, like I went down to the farm, to Otto Muhl's farm and everything. And I was just curious because I was thinking about it. I was like, yeah, there really hasn't been like a proper wild man in art since Otto Muhl, like Bjarne Melgaard is, like I was just wondering how you feel, like just what you think about him, and just like this whole because you're doing this whole kind of interdisciplinary thing with
I did a huge museum show at Friedrichshof,
yeah,
where they had a commune, and I worked quite closely with Hubert Klocker, who has the Otto Muhl estate.
Yeah.
And I think that what they did, and I was also very interested in the Black Wave film movement from Eastern Europe by Dusa Makayev and these films, where they also incorporated scenes from the commune. And I think that they, there's a lot of really interesting things with that whole phenomenon. But I mean, you know, what of course for me became very problematic is when you start to have sex with 12 years old.
Yeah, of course. He took it a little too far. The
You know, I mean, I mean,
degenerate activity.
I just that is not my thing.
Yeah,
I like consenting adults,
Yeah, of course.
but and I know also Norwegian people who lived in the commune and how it also became more and more druggy. But I think in the beginning, the utopia of this complete personal freedom and complete freedom of expression and being able to wanting to say and do whatever you want was amazing.
Yeah. You
And I
know,
think I mean I was for instance very good friends with Michelle Macaron in New York who represented him. And I think as a painter he was amazing.
oh, absolutely. Otto
And
Mueller.
I love his paintings. I love his films. And I mean he went to jail. I mean he did his sentence.
yeah.
And you know, and I curated a show with Otto Mueller's paintings in Norway, and I was very criticized by it.
I bet.
But my take is also like, I mean, this maybe sound very cynical, but if a person is a good artist, I don't really care if they're a psychopath or not.
Me neither.
If it's stand alone, you should separate. Yeah, separate
I
the.
mean, you
know,
don't have to
I
endorse
mean,
their character.
I actually think that you know that is you know I absolutely do not think it's okay to rape kids or anything like that. But you know, I don't think you need to necessarily be a good person with good intentions to be a good artist.
Yeah. And I think you can still be a good person and be interested in work made by maybe unsavory characters. You know, there's this film called Melancholy or Angle. I don't know if you know about it.
Yes.
The filmmaker's name, well, his pseudonym is Marion Dora. And I got this thing on DVD. I show it to everybody who will let me. But it is legitimately sick. Not because necessarily the content is so extreme, but because the actresses in it are so young and pretty, and like you're sitting there like wondering to yourself, how in the fuck did this guy talk these women into doing this on camera? Because they're not in any other fucking movie.
Yes.
So you know maybe that there's something very sort of deviant happening. But that's why it's so compelling. Like you can't help but like be provoked or like fascinated by such an occurrence happening on screen. You know, it's an uncomfortable watch, but if you can endure
But I
that,
mean, one of my favorite directors is Haneke.
of course, yeah, he's amazing.
You know, like the Seventh Continent, the piano teacher. I mean, for instance, like the piano teacher, when I watched that movie, I really identified with her. At one, you know, at this, you are at one point in your life doing things that have certain formalistic aspects to it. And at the same time, you're doing things that are so out there that they can't be, you can't, there's no meeting point between the two. And I think I think that he managed to very well portray these very complex problematics in a very interesting way.
Yeah, he's
He's
great.
a genius.
What do you think about Von Trier?
Also, one of my favorite movies of him is Amour, about the old couple.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
beautiful.
So
Did you
depressing.
did you see?
I mean, I mean, I think it's the most depressing film I know.
Yeah.
Did you see Gaspar Noé's Vortex?
Yes, I don't like it so much.
Interesting. We saw it in the theater.
Yeah.
And Gaspar was in the
Yeah.
theater watching it basically
5 other people.
yeah, he was watching it with Ari Aster and Leela Dare. So I think we had no choice but to like it, since he was like right there with his fucking towering presence, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, was it a good film?
What about Takashi Miike? Do you like him?
No.
The Ichi the Killer guy? Japanese
Vortex I liked, but it was like it was almost like he was responding to Amour, you know, because they're so
Yeah.
I like Irreversible.
Yeah, oh, it's
That's amazing.
I think
it's
that's
nuts.
his best film.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's insane. I have this DVD of it that does the film, the reverse order in which it's first presented, and then you can also watch the film in chronological order, which is kind of
Yes.
interesting.
Yes.
But yeah, Vortex, I think, was like, you know, it was a departure from his other work, but there was something about the performances in it that I think spoke to me, like Dario Argento sort of playing himself but dying, you know. I kind of
Yeah.
like that idea.
Yeah.
All right, this is a interesting question. In the what's Until the Light Takes Us, the primary Nordic black metal documentary. There's
Yes.
that iconic sequence when Fenriz from Dark Throne is at your exhibition. Did you already know him at that point? And if not, what were you thinking as he was? Did you care if he liked your work or not?
Yes, I cared if he liked my work or not. I think Dark, I think Dark Throne was one of the best black metal bands ever.
Yeah, Panzerfaust is like one of my all-time favorite records ever. Quintessence, the riff on that fucking shit is annihilating.
Yeah, but I mean, maybe when that scene was done, it was also in a very high-end gallery in Stockholm,
Yeah,
and I think he felt a little bit like, what am I really doing here? And I think also he felt towards the filmmakers that he was put in a situation that he didn't really understand why he was there,
yeah.
but what I was interested in black metal because I think it's the only real cultural contribution from Norway after Edvard Munch.
Yeah, I mean, I was just trying to think of like any Nordic filmmakers that I know, and the only one I could think of was Joachim Trier. But black metal is like this incredible youthful art form that came directly from Norway, you know.
And I collaborated with all the bands, and I also had my own record label, Institute of Civil Disobedience. And I for instance, I put out records by Thorns.
Thorns is amazing.
And Snorruk, and I did also big shows with them. And I was, but I was never, a rock and roll guy. I don't like to go to concerts. And, I like my music tastes. I like Miss Kitten and the Hacker.
Yeah, that's good shit.
Or Felix and the House Cat, or Romina
Like
Kuhn, or something.
French house kind of stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was maybe more interested in the visuality, and musically, I think that Thorns was my favorite.
That record's great.
Yeah, and I did also collaborate with Snorre, but what happened, which was we never spoke about the murders while we were working together until we were at Palais de Tokyo. And then I had also been involved, in a kind of very heavy S&M scene for a long period in, Cologne, Paris, Brussels. And I asked Snorre what happened and how does it feel? you know? And he said to me that, you know, for me, Bjarne, a human life has no value.
That's so hard.
Jesus.
And, you know, for me, at that point, you know, with all this S&M thing, that, you know, I also was, because I had boyfriends who was like into this, it just, I suddenly felt like, you know, I have to get out of it. It became so cold, you know, it was just so cold how he would tell that he would like, that he just didn't think it mattered. You know, there was no regret. There was just that, you know, it was so, and that's when I started to step back a little bit from it, because it became, as you say yourself, it becomes so hard.
Yeah, well, it's like, not to sound too like witchy or whatever, but when you invite dark energy into your life, the dark energy does end up infecting you and others, you know?
Yeah.
So I personally try to like avoid that kind of shit in my life, but there's a lot of black metal bands I really, really, really love, but from a distance, you know? Like I think like Peste Noir, the French black metal band, is incredible and provocative, and like, you know, it's this like, there's this one song where he basically starts rapping, and you're like, why the fuck is he rapping? But if
Yeah.
you look at the translation of the lyrics, you realize what he's trying to do is establish the fact, like hip hop has all these like tough guy kind of figures, like Tupac and Notorious B.I.G., and he's talking about Peter Curtin and like Alexander the Great, and he's trying to say like, oh, white people have tough figures too. It's
But you know
really,
what's interesting with the guys in these bands is that they don't really listen to metal at all. They
yeah,
listen to rap and house.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Henry is a house DJ.
yeah, yeah.
The most crazy experience I had was with Necro Butcher from Mayhem, who invited me for some reason uh, to come to his cottage outside of Norway, to have, like, you know, we're going to spend the night, talk about, you know, he was going to show me his photos from the early days.
Mhm.
And I entered, you know, this cottage, and I was kind of expecting, you know, black walls and, you know, and, you know, they were just like, you know, Grandmaster Flash posters everywhere.
That's a good.
Yeah.
And, you know, he was smoking so much weed that was like a gas chamber. And then suddenly he says to me, do you want Bjarne to show you my hobby? And I said, yeah, sure. And do you know these drawers that you have graphics in? That you put graphic, that you pull out, and you can put big drawings
Yeah.
and papers in them. And he had one of them, and he started taking out one drawer, and one drawer after another is all collections of murder of gay men.
Whoa.
And I was sitting in a cottage, him so stoned, in a cottage full of Grandmaster Flash posters, and suddenly realizing that I'm sitting with Necro Butcher from Mayhem, and his biggest fascination is gay murders.
That's terrifying.
And I was like, you know, maybe it's time for us to, go back to Oslo soon. And he was like, no, I have I have another thing over here I want to show. And it was more gay murders.
Wow.
It's
Check
just
your
like,
phone and there's no signal.
and I was just, suddenly I was just saying, like, we're leaving. Because I thought it was really crazy.
Yeah, it's
So
honestly very gay coded to be so obsessed with gay murders. Did you ever detect any like closetedness amongst these guys?
yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, because there is sort of like a repressed queerness to black metal. It's a bunch of young boys dressed up in makeup.
But also there's no women present.
And yeah, exactly. That's for sure.
They have some groupies, but I mean they are kind of like it's not like a rock band. I mean there's no female presence.
Right. It's not like they're Motley Crue.
And I never experienced any homophobia from any of them. When we did Until the Light Takes Us, and we know all that, they all knew I was gay, and I was making fist fucking black metal paintings and stuff like that, and they just thought it was cool.
Yeah.
And I definitely, and yeah, I had some experiences for sure.
Interesting. Yeah, tell me if you think I'm wrong, but I've always had this kind of conception that perhaps Euronymous was just like a very artistic and talented young kid who created this like incredible concept and image that attracted sort of maladjusted sociopaths,
Yes.
that took, I mean, they were teenagers, right? So like Euronymous is like, this is our code, this is our image. And then you get someone like Varg and whoever coming in, and they take it way too far.
Yeah.
And like Varg now, oh God, he's like to the YouTube videos and the tweets, and like he's just kind of made a joke out of himself. Like
I just think it's pathetic.
Yeah, I do too.
But do you know another thing? That his girlfriend in Bergen was the Norwegian pop star. Have you ever heard about Annie?
It sounds familiar, but
No, she's Norway's biggest international club singer.
Wow.
And she was with him when she was 14.
And he was like,
And
what,
then he was
20?
already in prison.
Whoa.
And then he managed to cheat on her in prison. Can you imagine? She goes to prison every 3 times a week, and he cheats on her in prison.
That's insane.
These men aren't even loyal in prison.
Yeah, well, Norwegian prisons are like, they're much different than they are here,
Yeah, I was in prison twice. I was arrested twice in America, and I just will say that I hope I never will end up in an American prison again.
Yeah, I got picked up in Tucson, Arizona for drug possession, and it was on a Friday night, so I couldn't call my dad until Monday because it was they when they realized how in danger I was, they let me call on Sunday. So I spent about 24 hours there, but it was me, a pretty young white boy, 20 years old, in a cage full of like 19 Latino scary motherfuckers. It was terrifying in a way that I'm just literally like this, just keeping my head down, trying to not make eye contact with anyone. It was awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was on steroids when I was arrested, so they were also fascinated how big I was.
Yeah.
I was kind of like, oh yeah, you go, we know what you're here for.
Amazing.
They wanted to know your workout routine.
Yeah.
You can bond with cops over that.
I heard you say this terrific quote that I really, really, really loved. How much information do we need?
Yes.
I think that's like one of the most insightful, like small quotes I've ever heard about living in the world we live in, because it's almost like we have access to so much shit that everyone's become dumber. No one has actual interests.
Yes.
Everybody just has like little bits of everything.
Yes.
You know, it's hard to deep dive into something. So when did you start to feel alienated? I mean, you deleted your Instagram at one point. When did you start to feel alienated by all that?
I did in New York, because in New York you're kind of uh, uh, you should be informed about everything going on. And in the end, I just felt like, for what? Why not rather uh, just be interested in things that you really feel interested in,
Yeah.
instead of just you know collapsing your mind with all these things that actually doesn't matter to you.
Yeah, with bullshit.
Yeah.
So for me it was, like, I follow art and I follow things, but I I'm mainly more interested in developing myself as a person than and also I'm not so interested in other people's knowledge all the time. I rather would like to develop my own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I live in Forest Hills, Queens now. It's like way out. Actually, interesting. We were talking about Otto Mule, but Wilhelm Reich lived right down the,
Yes.
like right over there where I'm pointing, 2 blocks down. It's where he built the orgone accumulator machine. And I think moving here was probably one of the best decisions I ever made, because there are times when it's annoying if I have to get downtown, but it's like kept me in touch enough. But also like I have my entire little relaxed existence over here, so it feels like I'm living in the suburbs, even though I'm still in proximity to New York. And um, yeah, I have this every time we're talking about psychedelics. Every time I do mushrooms, and I do mushrooms kind of a lot because I have this psilocybin tincture. It's amazing. You just drop it on your tongue and
Mhm.
drop out. The first thing I always think and always get paranoid and like over contemplate is, why in the ever living fuck do I display my life to the world at all? Because when
Yes.
I think about it, it just seems crazy and self-destructive, like when I'm in a moment of clarity.
Yeah, that's one of those epiphanies. That shit's kind of scary when you're in the when you're tripping.
Yeah,
Yes.
and your phone looks like a glowing orb of like
With
evil.
Yes.
It's like,
evil.
yeah,
But even if I hate Oslo, I like the isolation here. Like, I'm with my husband and my dog, and I have my studio, and I work and I live. We travel quite a lot, but I like to be able to just concentrate on my own things.
yeah. You said,
I don't want to, even if I think it's sometimes fun to post on Instagram and stuff, but
of course.
I I don't do it a lot. I don't check Instagram all day. I have friends who are like obsessed with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of sad because I think their lives pass away.
yeah. And I'm sure I'm probably, I mean, I have to use Instagram and Twitter regularly just to upkeep my projects, but there's a part of me that feels like I'm giving my soul away for sure.
Yeah.
Um, so you said once you, as much as you admire Nordic painting, you were trying to, there was a part of you like trying to get away from the solitude of Nordic painting. Do you feel like now you're maybe trying to move towards the solitude of Nordic painting?
No, I feel more now that I want to keep things on a very simple level. So let's say I paint a painting of a cow. It's a painting of a cow. It's nothing else.
I like that.
You know, it's no profound meaning behind it. It's what you see. And I'm trying to develop that simplicity. And the paintings in New York are a lot about just that immediate gesture. You know, like I like to paint fast, and I don't like to spend months on a painting, and I like things to be simple and easygoing.
That's the clarity of sobriety, isn't it? Because
Yes.
you're allowing yourself to just, it's a cow. Let's admire the beauty of this animal, this image.
Yes. So I have another appointment now.
Yes, this was I was just gonna say, this is a good place to leave it. It was a fantastic conversation, and thank you so much for joining us. I really do appreciate
Thank you so much for inviting me. I always follow your Instagram. I think your Twitter is hilarious.
I appreciate you saying that. I'm glad someone appreciates
Really funny.
it.
So thank you for having me. And can you send me some links?
Oh, of course.
You know?
I'll load you up with everything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
And thanks for everything. And I wish you the best with all your projects, and keep going.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I guess Bradford and I will see you in February.
Yes, the opening is at the 7th of February.
February 7th. We'll definitely be there.
Yes, please come. It will be a pleasure to meet you.
All right. Thank you so much, Bjarne. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.